So you want to know how to play almost any song on guitar? You've come to the right place. I don't want to waste your time, so let's get straight into it with these 7 essential chord shapes that are going to allow you to learn almost any guitar song, which are G, C, D, E, E minor, A, and A minor. Make sure to keep watching until the end of the video because I have some bonus chords that you guys are really going to want to learn. When I was a beginner guitarist, it took me a long time to understand how simple most songs are to play. You know, nowadays these beginner guitarists, they go online, they go on YouTube, they look up some song that they want to play, and then they get very disheartened and very confused about all these, professional guitar players saying, you need to learn this C add 9, 5, 69 sharp minor chord, and then you'll be able to glide along the fretboard and play any song like it's just pushing a button. But in reality, it's a lot simpler than that. All you need are these 7 chords that I'm about to show you. 90% of all songs are just made up of a combination of these chords. Which brings us to, we're going to start with the G chord. Now, I'm going to clarify some things which are going to make the rest of this video a lot easier to follow. So these kinds of chords, they're called open chords, which means that there is always at least one string left unfretted or open, which in the case of a G chord is the D, G, and B strings. They're left unfretted or open. And that is opposed to a bar chord, which every single string is being fretted. None of the strings are left open. And this video isn't about bar chords, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to show you open chords. And our fingers, so our index finger, that is our first finger. Our middle finger, that's our second finger. Our ring finger, that's our third finger. And then our pinky finger, that's our fourth finger. So when I say, so you're going to have your third finger on the 3rd fret of the high E string, for example, you know what that means. You can follow along with me, okay? So first finger, second finger, third finger, fourth finger. And obviously we don't use our thumb to play, so we just use that for support behind the neck. So a G chord, what we're gonna have is you're gonna have your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the high E string, like that, and then you're gonna take your first finger, so your index finger, you're gonna put that on the 2nd fret of the A string. Then you can take your 2nd finger, so your middle finger, on the 3rd fret of the low E string. And you're gonna play those all together. Now, you also can play your G chord a different way, which is where you have your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and then you have your 4th finger on the 3rd fret of the high E string. You can play it like this, it's still a G chord. However, I think that the first way I showed you sounds better than that. That's just me personally. If you want to use this version, you go right ahead. Both are still G chords, both still sound great. However, I think that version of the chord sounds better. So I use that version, so that's the version that I'll teach. So that's a G chord. Next, we're gonna do a C chord. So you're gonna have your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the A string. You're gonna have your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the D string. And then you're gonna have your 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the B string. Now with this chord, you don't strum all 6 strings. You only strum the first 5. So you strum every string except the low E string. Now, what you can do to make your life easier is when you do the C chord, if you get your thumb, instead of just leaving your thumb hanging out the back here, if you take your thumb and you move it up a little bit, and then you just touch it on the low E string, not enough to fret it, but just slightly touch it, it mutes the string. Okay, so the string doesn't play. So you can still strum all 6 strings, but the low E string is muted, so it doesn't make any sound. This is what I do. It makes your life so much easier when you're swapping between chords. And yeah, it just makes everything a lot easier. on yourself. It's really good as well when you get into the habit of doing that. So what I would recommend is every time you play a C chord, you play it with your thumb muting the low E string, because then you'll associate C chord with muting the low E string, so that every time you change to a C chord, you'll mute the low E string automatically. So next we have a D chord. So you can have your second finger on the second fret of the E string, and then you're gonna have your third finger on the third fret of the B string, and then you'll have your first finger on the second fret of the G string. Lovely sounding chord. Now with this chord, you only strum the first 4 strings. So you don't play the low E string or the A string. Now, when you play this chord, you can do pretty much the same thing as the C chord. You can wrap your thumb around the top 2 strings and mute them. Just slightly touch them and mute them. Not enough to fret them, but enough to mute them so they don't play. So you can still strum all 6 strings, but the first 2 don't ring out because they're not part of the chord. As well, when you're changing to a D chord, or every time you play D chord, you want to be able to do this. So you associate changing to a D chord with muting the top 2 strings. That's going to make your life a lot more easier when you're playing. So next we're going to do an E chord. So you want to put your second finger on the second fret of the A string. You're going to put your third finger on the second fret of the D string, and you're going to put your first finger on the first fret of the B string, sorry, the G string, and then you're going to strum all 6 strings. Very popular chord for playing rock songs, as it's got a very powerful sound to it. So next we're going to have an E minor chord, which is the same chord shape, except you take your first finger off the first fret of the G string. So you don't fret that. You play that open. You keep your second finger and your third finger in the same spot. You don't move them. You just move your first finger. And you still strum all 6 strings. Okay, so that's E minor. Next, we're going to play an A chord. Now, there are also 2 different ways to play this chord. The way that I play it is, so you have your second finger on the second fret of the D string. You have your third finger on the second fret of the B string. And then you have your first finger on the second fret of the G string. And then it's the same as the C chord, where you don't play the first string. So you want to wrap your thumb around the top like that and mute it. Very cool sounding chord. Now the other way to play it is you have your first finger on the second fret of the D string. You have your second finger on the second fret of the G string, and then you have your third finger on the second fret of the B string. Now this shape of the chord, this way to play the chord, it's not very comfortable for me. I might just have massive sausage fingers, not really, but even then it's still very uncomfortable for me to play. So I prefer to play it like that. That's easier for me. If this way is easier for you, then you play that way. Or if it's easier for you to play this way, then play it that way. I also like this way to play it because it's also really easy to swap to a D chord as you're playing. because your first finger is already in the right spot for it. So you just move your third finger up one fret, and then you just move your second finger. Then you have a D chord. Okay, so next we have an A minor. So second finger on the second fret of the D string, third finger on the second fret of the G string, then first finger on the first fret of the B string. Now same as before, same as A and C chord. You don't play the first string, so you want to mute that. Very cool sounding chord. And there you go. They are the 7 most essential chords that you're going to need to play almost any song. Now, the reason why these chords are used in so many songs is because they're very easy to play. They're very easy to play, and a lot of them work well together because most of them are in the same key. So there you have it. Those are the 7 essential open chords that everyone needs to know. Now, they are the most widely used chords in the vast majority of the songs. But these next bonus chords that I'm going to show you are also widely used, not as much as those 7 chords, but these chords, they get used in a ton of songs, so let's get into it. So first off, we have a D minor chord. So first finger on the first fret of the high E string, second fret, second finger on the second fret of the B string, second finger on the second fret of the G string, third finger on the third fret of the B string. Now, same as the D chord, you want to mute these first 2 strings. Awesome sounding chord. Awesome. And this next chord I'm going to show you, it's called an F chord. So you want your third finger on the third fret of the A string, fourth finger on the third fret of the D string, second finger on the second fret of the G string, then first finger on the first fret of the B string. Same as C chord and A chord. Mute that first string. Awesome sounding chord. Now this chord, technically it's the cheap version of an actual F chord, which is a bar chord. But the proper bar chord F chord, that's one of the more harder chords to play because it's under the most amount of tension at the top of the neck when you're playing it, like this first fret, barring this first fret. So we can have a cheap version, which allows you to play it in an open chord version. It still sounds great, but it's just an easier way of playing that chord with getting a similar sound. Okay, so to prove to you guys that I didn't just pull all of this out of my ass, I'm going to play some songs that you now have the ability to play. All of these songs use a combination of the chords that I just showed you. These are just a few examples of songs that you can now play. We're only scratching the surface when it comes to this. Thousands and thousands of songs use only a combination of these chords. I want to give full credit to Nikens, who gave me the idea for this video. He has a video on his channel about the 7 essential open chords. That's where I got the idea for this video from. But I've sort of adapted and modified the idea for this channel and what I want to do with it. So full credit to him. Fantastic teacher, amazing guitarist. You guys should go check him out. I'll leave a link to his channel down in the description. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you all. Make sure to click on this video to find out the easiest way to make your guitar sound amazing. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you around.